It was just after midnight in Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia. Inside Kuala Lumpur International Airport, hundreds of travelers quietly made their way through the brightly lit departure terminal. Some were returning home, others were traveling for business, family visits, or long-awaited vacations. Among them were 227 passengers and 12 crew members preparing to board Malaysia Airlines Flight MH370. Their destination was Beijing, China. The aircraft waiting at the gate was a Boeing 777-200ER, one of the world's most trusted long-haul passenger jets. Everything about this flight appeared completely ordinary. The weather was calm. The aircraft had passed its inspections. The crew was experienced. Nothing suggested that this Route 80 INE overnight journey would soon become one of the greatest unsolved mysteries in aviation history. At approximately 12:41 a.m. local time, flight MH370 slowly pushed back from its gate and began taxiing toward the runway. Inside the cabin, passengers settled into their seats. Some watched movies. Others adjusted their pillows, hoping to sleep through the 6-hour flight. In the cockpit sat Captain Zahari Ahmad Shah, a veteran pilot with thousands of hours of flying experience, alongside First Officer Fariq Abdul Hamid, who was completing the final stages of his training on the Boeing 777. Moments later, the engines roared to full power. The aircraft accelerated down the runway. Within seconds, it lifted smoothly into the night sky. To everyone watching, it was simply another successful departure. No alarms, no warning signs, nothing out of the ordinary. MH370 climbed to its cruising altitude. Communication between the aircraft and air traffic control remained completely normal. The pilots responded to every instruction professionally. The aircraft followed its planned route toward the South China Sea. Everything appeared exactly as expected. No unusual weather was reported. No technical problems were transmitted. Every radar display showed a healthy aircraft moving steadily toward its destination. And shortly before the flight was scheduled to enter Vietnamese airspace, air traffic control instructed the crew to contact the next control center. It was a routine handover, a procedure repeated thousands of times every single day around the world. No one realized those routine instructions would soon become historically significant. The captain acknowledged the instruction with a calm and familiar message. "Good night, Malaysian 370. Those would become the final confirmed words ever heard from the cockpit. Seconds later, the aircraft's transponders stopped transmitting. Civilian radar screens, the airplane simply disappeared. There was no distress call, no emergency code, no indication of smoke, fire, or mechanical failure. Controllers initially assumed the aircraft had switched to the next frequency. Small communication delays occasionally happened. There was no immediate reason to panic. As the minutes passed, no reply came back. Traffic controllers tried calling the aircraft again. Silence. Vietnamese controllers searched for the flight. Nothing. Military radar operators soon noticed something unexpected. Instead of continuing toward Beijing, the aircraft appeared to have changed direction. Why? Was it a navigation error? A deliberate turn? The beginning of something no one could yet explain. Within the next few hours, what began as a routine flight would trigger the largest international aviation search in history. Even today, after years of investigations, advanced technology, and countless hours of searching, one question still remains unanswered. What really happened to Malaysia Airlines Flight MH370? By now, Flight MH370 should have been entering Vietnamese airspace. Instead, confusion was beginning to spread inside 2 different air traffic control centers. Malaysian controllers believed the aircraft had already been handed over. Vietnamese controllers expected the flight to check in at any moment, but the call never came. First, no one suspected a disaster. Radio communication delays were not unusual. Controllers attempted to contact the aircraft several times. There was only silence. Minutes continued to pass. The aircraft appeared to have vanished without warning. Inside the operations rooms, uncertainty slowly turned into concern. No emergency signal had been received. No distress message had been transmitted. A modern Boeing 777 carrying 239 people had simply stopped communicating. At that moment, nobody knew this was only the beginning of a mystery that would challenge aviation experts for years to come. Communication attempts continued to fail. Vietnamese air traffic controllers contacted their Malaysian counterparts, asking a simple but urgent question. "You heard from MH370? The answer was no. Both control centers quickly realized they were facing the same problem. Neither one knew exactly where the aircraft was. Normally, an aircraft crossing international airspace remains in constant contact with air traffic controllers. If communication is interrupted, pilots can usually switch to another frequency or use backup systems within minutes. This time, nothing happened. No voice, no radio transmission, no emergency signal. On every civilian radar screen, flight MH370 had vanished. No one could explain how a modern passenger jet carrying 239 people could disappear so completely without leaving behind even the smallest clue. Every passing minute made the situation more alarming. Behind the scenes, officials quietly began preparing for what they hoped would not become a full-scale emergency. Civilian radar had lost contact with Flight MH370. Another system was still quietly watching. Malaysia's military radar continued tracking an unidentified aircraft. To the surprise of investigators, the radar data suggested the aircraft had not continued toward Beijing. Instead, it appeared to make a sharp turn to the west, crossing back over the Malaysian peninsula. This was completely unexpected. Commercial airliners do not suddenly change course without a clear reason. No emergency had been reported. No request to divert had been made. The aircraft simply turned and continued flying. At the time, military operators did not immediately recognize the aircraft as MH370. Hours would pass before the radar recordings were carefully reviewed. Investigators finally compared the flight path with the missing aircraft's last known position. They realized something astonishing. Flight MH370 may not have disappeared immediately after leaving civilian radar. It had continued flying for far longer than anyone had imagined. As investigators reconstructed the aircraft's path, another crucial question emerged. If MH370 had really turned back across Malaysia, who made that decision? Modern commercial aircraft do not change direction on their own. A turn of that magnitude must be commanded from the cockpit or programmed into the flight management system. Investigators searched for any evidence of a technical failure. They examined weather reports. There were no severe storms along the planned route. Checked for reports of turbulence. Nothing unusual appeared. Looked for signs of an onboard emergency. No distress call had ever been transmitted. Even more puzzling, the aircraft's final radio message sounded completely calm. There was no fear in the captain's voice. No hint that anything was wrong. Whatever happened after that final transmission unfolded in complete silence, leaving investigators with almost no immediate evidence to explain why one of the world's most advanced airliners had suddenly abandoned its planned route. For several days, search teams focused on the South China Sea. Ships, aircraft, and rescue crews from multiple countries searched the area where Flight MH370 was first believed to have disappeared. Hour after hour, they scanned the ocean for floating debris. Nothing was found. No life rafts, no fuel slick, no luggage. Not even a single confirmed piece of the aircraft. The complete absence of evidence raised an even more disturbing possibility. If everyone had been searching in the wrong place, investigators uncovered new information from military radar and satellite data. The evidence suggested that MH370 had continued flying for several more hours after its final radio transmission. If that was true, the aircraft could have traveled thousands of kilometers away from its original route. Everything the investigation had assumed during the first few days was suddenly called into question. The search area would now shift dramatically, opening an entirely new chapter in one of aviation's greatest mysteries. Investigators now turned their attention to a source of data that most people had never heard of. It wasn't radar. It wasn't a radio transmission. It came from a network of communication satellites orbiting thousands of kilometers above Earth. Although Flight MH370 had stopped sending normal tracking information, the aircraft's satellite data unit continued exchanging brief automated signals, known as handshakes, with an Inmarsat satellite. These signals contained no voice recordings, no cockpit conversations, no GPS location. They did reveal one critical fact. The aircraft was still powered, was still flying. Hour after hour, the satellite continued receiving these automatic signals. The final handshake was recorded several hours after the aircraft had disappeared from civilian radar. That single discovery changed everything. It proved the aircraft had not crashed immediately after losing contact. Instead, MH370 had remained in the air, traveling into the unknown long after the rest of the world believed it had already vanished. The satellite handshakes provided investigators with one more vital clue. Each signal carried tiny timing and frequency changes that could be analyzed. By measuring how long the signals took to travel and how they shifted during flight, engineers estimated where the aircraft might have been. the calculations produced two possible flight paths. One stretched north across Asia. The other extended far south into the remote Indian Ocean. Investigators carefully compared both possibilities with military radar data, fuel calculations, and records from other aircraft. One route gradually became far more likely than the other. Everything pointed toward the southern Indian Ocean. It was one of the most isolated places on Earth, thousands of kilometers from the nearest major airport. An endless expanse of deep water, powerful waves, and unpredictable weather. If MH370 had ended its journey there, finding the aircraft would become an extraordinary challenge. The investigation was no longer just a search for a missing airplane. It had become a race against one of the harshest environments on the planet. With the new evidence pointing toward the southern Indian Ocean, the search entered an entirely new phase. This was no ordinary stretch of water. The southern Indian Ocean is one of the most remote and unforgiving places on Earth. Towering waves, powerful currents, and depths reaching nearly 6,000 meters made every search operation incredibly difficult. Despite these challenges, dozens of ships and aircraft from several countries joined the mission. Specialized vessels equipped with advanced sonar systems slowly scanned the ocean floor. Every unusual shape detected beneath the water was carefully investigated. Each time, investigators hoped they had finally found MH370. And each time, the answer was the same. It wasn't the missing aircraft. Weeks turned into months. The search area grew larger and larger. Yet the ocean refused to reveal its secret. What had begun as a desperate rescue mission had now become one of the most complex underwater searches ever attempted in human history. In July 2015, more than a year after flight MH370 disappeared, the investigation took an unexpected turn. On the remote island of Reunion, located in the western Indian Ocean, a beach cleanup team discovered a large piece of aircraft debris washed ashore. At first, it looked like nothing more than a damaged section of metal. But aviation experts quickly recognized its shape. It was a flaperon, a movable control surface attached to the wing of a Boeing 777. The debris was transported to France for detailed examination. After weeks of analysis, investigators confirmed it had come from Malaysia Airlines Flight MH370. It was the first physical evidence linking the missing aircraft to the southern Indian Ocean. For the families of the 239 people on board, the discovery brought mixed emotions. It confirmed that the aircraft had been lost. But it still offered no answers about why it disappeared, what happened during its final hours, or where the main wreckage remained. The greatest mystery was far from over. The discovery of the flaperon marked a major breakthrough, but it also raised even more questions. If one piece of the aircraft had reached Reunion Island, where was the rest of the wreckage? Oceanographers began studying the powerful currents of the Indian Ocean. By simulating months of drifting debris, they traced possible paths back toward the southern Indian Ocean. For the following years, additional pieces believed to be from MH370 were found along the coasts of Mozambique, Tanzania, South Africa, and Mauritius. Each discovery strengthened the conclusion that the aircraft had ended its journey somewhere in the southern Indian Ocean. Yet none of these fragments could explain what had happened inside the aircraft. They revealed nothing about the final moments of the flight. No flight recorders had been recovered. No cockpit voice recorder had been found. Without those crucial devices, investigators were left with only scattered evidence, satellite data, radar records, and a growing list of unanswered questions. The search for the aircraft continued, but finding the truth was proving far more difficult than anyone had imagined. As the years passed, investigators considered every plausible explanation. Could a catastrophic mechanical failure have disabled the aircraft? Extensive examinations of the Boeing 777 found no known defect capable of causing the sequence of events recorded that night. Could a fire have filled the cockpit with smoke? Investigators studied that possibility as well, but no physical evidence was ever recovered to confirm it. Others wondered whether the aircraft had been hijacked. Again, no verified evidence supported that conclusion. Attention also turned to the pilots. Their backgrounds, training, medical records, and personal lives were examined in extraordinary detail. Despite years of investigation, no single finding provided a definitive explanation for the disappearance. Every theory answered one question, only to create several more. Without the flight data recorder and cockpit voice recorder, investigators could not reconstruct the aircraft's final moments with certainty. Even today, the evidence supports some possibilities more than others, but no theory has been proven beyond doubt. That uncertainty is what continues to make MH370 one of aviation's greatest mysteries. Despite one of the largest search operations in aviation history, the main wreckage of Flight MH370 has never been found. Between 2014 and 2017, search teams mapped more than 120,000 square kilometers of the southern Indian Ocean. Highly advanced underwater vehicles scanned the seabed, searching for any sign of the missing Boeing 777. Again and again, sonar detected objects resting on the ocean floor. Each discovery raised hopes. Each investigation ended in disappointment. None of the objects turned out to be MH370. In early 2017, after years of searching without locating the aircraft, the official underwater search was suspended. For the families of the 239 people on board, the announcement was heartbreaking. Many had spent years hoping that every new search would finally provide answers. Instead, they were left with uncertainty. Without the main wreckage or the flight recorders, investigators had reached the limits of what the available evidence could reveal. The greatest clue was still hidden somewhere beneath the vast waters of the Indian Ocean. Although the official search had ended, the story of MH370 did not. Families of the passengers refused to give up hope. They continued urging governments and aviation authorities to keep looking for the aircraft. Independent researchers also remained committed to the case. Using improved satellite analysis, ocean current modeling, and computer simulations, they proposed new areas where the wreckage might still be hidden. Some experts argued that earlier searches may have missed the correct location by only a few kilometers. Others believed the aircraft could be resting in terrain too rugged for previous sonar equipment to identify clearly. As technology continued to improve, so did the possibility of finding new evidence. Several private companies expressed interest in launching another search, believing that today's underwater mapping systems are far more capable than those available a decade ago. For many people, MH370 is no longer just a missing airplane. It has become a symbol of one unanswered question that the world is still determined to solve. More than a decade has passed since Flight MH370 vanished from radar. Yet the disappearance continues to influence aviation around the world. Airlines and regulators have introduced new tracking technologies designed to reduce the chances of another aircraft disappearing without a trace. Satellite-based flight monitoring has improved. Emergency tracking requirements have become stronger. International cooperation between aviation authorities has also expanded. These changes are part of MH370's lasting legacy, a tragedy that revealed important weaknesses in global flight tracking. But despite these improvements, one essential question remains unanswered. What happened during the aircraft's final hours? Without the flight recorders, investigators cannot confirm exactly what took place inside the cockpit or cabin. The evidence tells only part of the story. The rest remains hidden somewhere beneath the waters of the southern Indian Ocean. Until the wreckage is found, the final chapter of MH370 will remain unwritten. Today, the disappearance of Malaysia Airlines Flight MH370 remains officially unsolved. Investigators have gathered radar records, satellite data, recovered debris, and years of expert analysis. Together, these pieces reveal part of the story, but they do not reveal the complete truth. Without the aircraft's flight data recorder and cockpit voice recorder, the final moments of the flight cannot be reconstructed with certainty. The leading theories continue to be studied, debated, and challenged, yet none has been proven beyond doubt. For the families of the 239 people on board, the search has never been only about an airplane. It has always been about answers, about understanding what happened to their loved ones, and about bringing one of aviation's greatest mysteries to a close. Perhaps one day, advancing technology or a new discovery beneath the Indian Ocean will finally uncover the missing aircraft. Until that day arrives, Flight MH370 remains a reminder that even in an age of satellites, advanced radar, and modern aviation, our world can still hold mysteries that refuse to be solved. Thank you for watching.